we now have a wizard who is very psionic based. Tell me about this new wizard and also the accompanying spell list.
Yes, so the third class who gets a subclass in this Unearthed Arcana is the wizard. A wizard who has studied the Arcane Tradition of Psionics. And so the name of this Arcane Tradition is simply Psionics.
So this is a new school.
It's not a school of magic.
Okay, it's not a school of magic.
No,
right.
So the wizard subclasses are called Arcane Traditions.
Right.
And so whenever a wizard picks a subclass, they're essentially picking a magical tradition that they have dedicated themselves to. Mm-hmm. The wizards in the Player's Handbook have dedicated themselves to one of the 8 schools of magic.
Right.
But there are other traditions out there. In
War
Xanathar's
magic.
Guide, we have wizards who dedicate themselves to the magical tradition of war magic. Here, these are wizards who've dedicated themselves to the magical tradition of psionics. And so these are wizards who are especially adept at using certain spells that have a psionic theme. And to assist players of this wizard, we have even provided a big list of spells from the Player's Handbook, Xanathar's Guide, and this Unearthed Arcana, because we introduce a handful of new spells in this Unearthed Arcana, a list of all the psionic themed spells in the game. And it turns out there are a lot of them. And that's, again, intentional. We did that when creating the Player's Handbook. We made sure we were hitting sort of the psionic targets that D&D classically has really wanted to be there in its spell selection. So this wizard is very good at using those spells. And when the wizard adopts this tradition, they create an object called a Psionic Focus. It involves a crystal that they use to really focus, as it's in the name, to focus their psionic power. The game effect of this is they can use this crystal as a spellcasting focus. It needs to simply be on their person somewhere. They don't need to hold it necessarily. And they can also use it with any of their spells, even spells that don't normally require material components. If they use it and one of their spells deals psychic damage or force damage, they then get to re-roll ones that they roll for the damage. Because really we want to make it so that these wizards, more than anybody else, are good at the kinds of magic that you would associate with psionics. And so when it comes to damage, that typically means psychic damage and force damage. One of the fun side effects of this is, and an intentional one, is that these wizards are actually very good at magic missile. Because you would want a psionicist to be really good at pelting people with mystical force. These wizards also, at higher level, gain the ability to assume a thought form where they turn themselves into pure thought and are able to, while they're in this thought form, cast any of their wizard spells without components because they're just channeling them psionically. And they gain a number of resistances because they're partially incorporeal. Their capstone ability in this subclass is being able to, when they're in this thought form, to fly and also pass through solid objects. So they just become this psionic being,
pure thought,
who is floating around on the battlefield, wielding either the psionically themed spells that were in the Player's Handbook or some of these ones that are in this Unearthed Arcana. The spell list in the Unearthed Arcana includes some classics like Ego Whip, Id Insinuation. People who are fans of psionics know that these names have been in the game, again, going all the way back to first edition.
Right.
And we included them not only because they were important for the psionics wizard, but we also wanted these spells to be available to bards, warlocks, and sorcerers. So in this Unearthed Arcana, these new spells are offered up as options for all of those classes. We also know that sometimes people might want some psionic flavor in their character without dedicating their subclass to this sort of particular aesthetic. And so in addition to there being new spells accompanying the Psionics wizard,
I sense like a feat.
we have 2 feats also that are here, and that is the Telepathic feat and the Telekinetic feat. And so these are available to anyone who uses the optional feat rule, and they will give any character a little bit of psionic spice, whether you want some telepathic spice or some telekinetic spice. And so this UA taken together, the Psychic Warrior, the Soul Knife, the Psionics Wizard, the spells, the feats, you add this to the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer we did a while ago,
the snot.
the great old one, Warlock in the Player's Handbook,
Yeah.
A lot of the spells that are already in the game, you suddenly have a really nice array of options if you want your character to be psionically themed.
Now, is there still a spell book for the psionic-based wizard?
Absolutely.
Okay, there's still a spell book.
They are a wizard,
Okay.
and a D&D wizard is not a wizard without a spell book. But one of the options they have is when they create their Psionic Focus, they decide how to mount it. We have a sidebar that talks about how you might have come about your Psionic Focus, and then you decide, are you wearing it as an amulet? Is it in a circlet? Is it on a wand? But one of the other options is you could also embed it on the cover of your spellbook and actually use your spellbook to channel your psionic power.
Or it could just be a giant circular machine like Xavier has.
That's right.
You can only cast spells in a building that's about 6 feet tall, like 6 stories tall. Yeah. It's a slight limitation.
And we were really excited to create this wizard subclass because wizards are the sort of mind-based class in D&D par excellence. And as students of magic, they of all people would want to delve into the magic of the mind. And so if a wizard finds they have the knack for this kind of magic, they can dig into this tradition and again, eventually, through that study, gain the ability to become pure thought.
What do you get from those feats? Are they almost like the Warlock Initiate kind of
So
thing,
the Telepathic feat, as the name implies, gives you telepathy. And it also gives you proficiency in a skill of your choice. And the skills that we provided are all skills that involve interacting with other people. Because our design conceit here is that if you're able to read people's minds, you might also have an edge in interacting with them. And communicate with people's minds. The Telekinetic feat gives you the Mage Hand cantrip, but you are able to cast it to actually hurl people away. So you have some fun utility there as you gain this telekinetic power.